Good evening again. Welcome to the Town of Emmitsburg Town Meeting for the special budget, town meeting with the budget as one of our main pieces tonight. At this time, I'll ask if you have a cell phone, please turn it to the silent mode if you would, or off, out of respect to decorum for this evening. Moving forward, we ask everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. This is the May 15th, 2017 town meeting related to the budget primarily. I was advised earlier that Mr. Sweeney will not be with us. I'm uncertain regarding Mr. Ritz. My hope is he's able to make it. Moving forward, future meetings are the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting will occur on May 16th at 7:30 p.m. That's tomorrow night. The Parks Committee will meet also tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Curiously, have you guys worked out the room situations?
No, but
we're okay. Great. Okay.
I'll
All right.
sit in here.
I know the Throngs will maybe want signage on the doors. I don't know. Our next town council meeting will be June 3rd. Am I reading that correctly?
Okay.
June 5th, excuse me, at 7:30 p.m. Okay, and now we turn to, a quick item for commissioners' comments and the mayor's comments.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, okay, all right. We have a guest speaker, Ms. Mills. I guess she's not going to be here, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, so she is the town auditor. She will not be attending tonight. Okay, so we turn to town commissioner comments. Commissioner Buckman?
I have nothing.
You have nothing. Very good. Commissioner Blanchard.
Mr. President, I'll be brief. One, great weather outside. Get out and enjoy the parks. Where all the trails, ride your bikes, get for a walk, etc. And also next week is the Mother Seton Carnival. Good food and fun. And for the record, I do have to say my daughter's a graduate of this school. So, there.
Yeah, there we go.
Embedded.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Commissioner,
Okay.
you know the dates of the carnival, so we can make sure we get that up?
Next Monday through next Saturday.
Okay.
So next Monday is, what's a week from today? 22nd, right?
5.
Yeah.
22nd, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Be
Starts at
working
5
every
and
night.
5 to 9ish, 5 to 10, 5 to 10, something like that.
Okay. All right, so we move forward. Last week, I want to make sure I have it correct. Yes, last week I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Lindsay, visited his farm, and we discussed the wastewater treatment plant and the odor situation that was taking place over there. At the time I visited, the wind was favorable to their property, so it wasn't noticeable at that time. However, he said that there were issues that he was aware of. One thing to be very clear of, in part of my visit, I did apologize to him. I did speak to him. I felt that my words in the last meeting, in part, were too pointed. We discussed that, and I appreciate his time and his wife's time for having me as a guest on their property. And we had a very good conversation, so I do appreciate his time. Moving forward, we have a trail day this Sunday. It begins at 9, it ends at 1. Volunteers are very welcome. There's information available on the town website, on a new Facebook page for Emmitsburg Trails, if I can plug that, and also on More, the More website. Tools will be provided, as will food, before and after the event. We hope to have a barbecue in town, weather permitting, and details are available at Trail Day. And the food's available for volunteers and their families. And that would conclude my comments. We turn to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Ms. Lindsay. Good to see you, sir. Right there. I attended the Mount St. Mary's graduation. For the record, I had a grandson graduate Sunday, and
Favoritism.
and attended the Mother Seton. They had a program this morning. It's on tonight, but I caught the early one. Fine arts course and band performance. Every day is Earth Day. We've had a lot of discussions here about what's the town doing on its for the future. And we've always said we're forward-looking. We're thinking about grandchildren, what they want, and it's for them. That's who we want this to be. Something left for them, and it's part of our comp plan that's sustainability. Use what you need, but save some for other. Here are some of the songs they had. Every Day is Earth Day. Recycle Rap, which was good. When a Tree Falls, I think we had a discussion of what this does. The solar, taking cars off the road. so we can live. Don't forget the little children, and that's the one that really spiked me a little bit, that for the future. We have to leave something better. That's what we should do. Every generation did that, and then it kind of got lost and blurred a little bit. Well, let's get the town staying on track, the board and everybody. We're doing a lot for the future, and thank you. But this was very timely, and they are a green school, but that's what the kids want, and that's what we should be voting on. Let's see, town breakfast for businesses this Thursday, 8 o'clock at the Carriage House Inn, and we're going to invite the businesses for breakfast, and kind of a soft rollout of drug awareness, but the main thing is just to thank the businesses for everything they've done. We submitted our name for the Gonzaga children who'll come up here to paint a certain house here, chip it, and then we get that cleared, and we'll see if that goes through. But that's going on right now. And but thank you very much, and game on for the
Great.
other stuff.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any public comments? No? Yes, maybe? Okay.
Process of elimination, right?
We do have a Mr. Lindsay signed up. Mr. Lindsay, thank you. Good evening.
Okay, I think we can narrow it down here. It's
And Mr. Lindsay, I think here's what we're going to do. Should there be a revisiting of the dais, I think just saying your name will be fine henceforth, as opposed to saying your address every time, which I think I made you suffer through last time. But I think
okay.
henceforth, just as long as we just get the first name. And the reason I'm doing that, just so you know, is for the tape recording.
Sure.
So when they do the minutes,
Office
hopefully
Street.
it's there.
Okay.
So,
Good evening. Richard Lindsay. I don't want you to think I'm just coming to every meeting to complain. I'm not. I'm really not. I want to get through this just like you all do. I wanted to thank you for, Commissioner, for the visit. Appreciate it.
Sure.
And I want to thank you all for responding to my email. I appreciate that. It's been nice out there. Prevailing winds, and you all know it. I am now an authority on wind direction, I can assure you. And I did hear from Mr. Snyder. He stayed in contact with me. He has mulched about 75%, I'd say. He can't get out to the middle. He has a contractor coming in this week, he told me, to finish that up, and he did add the odor deterrent. But I will tell you, I went downwind. I drove around, went across Tom's Creek, and drove over on the ridge on the other side. Still is an odor, but not as predominant. Not as predominant. And I just want to, I'm nervous that this is going to lay down, folks. I don't want it to, because I still think we have a lot of unanswered questions. I really have not gotten any satisfaction about this 350 loads that came in last year. And I was told by Mr. Snyder it'll probably be more this year. And 12 days, 12 and 12 of hauling out, again, like I think I said before, the math just doesn't work. That is conceivable that would happen. So I'm still concerned about that. I'm also concerned the fact that if he can't spread, and these are his words, if he can't spread this material, if we have a wet summer, he has to store it, which means he could still be hauling in unless you all, and I'm not asking for an answer, unless you all can prohibit that. I don't know. I don't know the contract. Anyway, just a few of my comments. Thank you again for hearing me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
thank you for coming in, sir. Okay. We don't have anybody else signed up for public comment. Just as a follow-up, I would say, speaking to the board, the mayor's staff, if maybe we can revisit this at a future meeting. I don't know if we have it as a specific agenda item for the June meeting, but there might be some wisdom in talking about the management piece as the summer is coming. And we'll
try
look
to
at
be
that.
get ahead of the problem before let it come to us again.
Sure. And
If
go
I
ahead.
might add,
Sure,
we already
absolutely.
have a letter drafted up to that regards, that there will be no hauling in prior to the December 15th date.
Okay.
And we kind of reiterated what his operation plan was that he sent to us, and just confirming that it is in fact 12 working days in the winter, 12 working days in the spring, and some other things that he had mentioned about the straw, the odor control, but also he does have other places that he can store when the weather is not conducive. And so that's basically what the letter states.
Great. Was there any mention regarding weekend haul-in?
Yes, and that was already something that was ceased a while back.
Okay.
There was no weekend or holiday haulings either direction.
The other item is a question arose related to the chemical itself, the bioagent that's being used to reduce the smell. The hope was to identify that.
I have it.
Great. Okay. And I think those were the questions. But
Okay. There was one other thing that had caused, and this was never brought up, that Mr. Snyder and I had discussed, that the reason that there was a stronger odor at some point was because his trucks were coming, instead of trying to cross 15, they were going north on 15, getting off on 140, going past the Jubilee, and getting back on 15 southbound. That's no longer going to happen either. So there'll be no more haulings coming into town.
okay.
So they're all things that we've
Sure.
drafted up in this letter, and Mr. Snyder's already really pretty much agreed to, other than the before December, which we will address in that letter as well.
Okay. So what I'm going to suggest is we come back to this as an administrative business item for our June meeting, where we put this on our agenda, and we give this some attention at that time to follow up. Would it be possible? Sorry, Mr. Blanchard.
Mr.
Yes.
Lindsay wanted to make another comment.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Mr. Lindsay. I'll invite you up in just a moment. I'm sorry. The other piece is we'll go through that as an administrative item business. If the letter could be made available to the board, that would be appreciated. If you can share that.
Okay.
And
Do you want to see it before it's sent? It's in draft form right now.
I don't know. We need to verify it.
Okay.
I think we just want to know.
I'll make a
what's being
copy for
shared.
everybody.
And
And
any
the
info.
contents.
Say again.
And the contents of the
Correct.
deodorizer.
And information about the bioagent to reduce the smell. Mr. Lindsay, come on up. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you waiting. Sorry about that.
No, I'm sorry. Just to follow up what, and I didn't thank Ms. Willits. I've been bugging her on the phone too. But she's always very responsive. Thank you for that. If I understood that correctly, he's no longer going to use the interchange. He's going to use the at-grade intersection.
I don't know which intersection, but he's not going to come up and go off of 140 through town any longer. We haven't discussed which direction he's going to go, but he's not going to go up through town any longer. I
Well-
don't know what directions he's going to go. That was never part of our conversation.
Well, it probably most of his haulings are southbound, which means, and I think I mentioned this to him from the beginning. That if I can put my old state highway hat on, I'm nervous about these at-grade intersections. You all have heard me talk about them before. God forbid we have something happen at that crossover, because I know what the state will do. I believe they will close that crossover because there's an interchange within proximity. Now, if he's telling us that he's not going to use that interchange unless he's going to come into the light, make a left and come back through him at Garden to go south, which I don't think he was doing that much anyway, quite frankly.
He
So-
didn't say, and I'm not going to speculate what his traffic pattern's going to be. He only specified that he was not going to come through town any longer. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Commissioner.
I'll be the focal
Yes.
point for the conversation.
Okay, no, I don't want to turn it into this, folks. Honestly,
No, this is
I
good.
just wanted to,
This is very good. No, don't worry about
Okay.
it. This is what we need, and we're trying to help each other. So,
I know that.
so related to the.
Staff has been great with me on this.
Well, thank you.
They
Okay.
really have. So, okay, thank you all again.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Okay. Any other information you feel would be relevant to share before the meeting would be appreciated.
No, not at
So,
this time.
Okay. Nobody even before the next
Oh,
meeting.
okay. Yes.
Anything relative would be.
Okay.
We'd be happy to see. Okay. With those things having been said, I don't know we have any other items related to vaguely administrative business. Oh, I'm sorry. I do. This is as of tonight. Irishtown Road, where Brookfield Road meets Irishtown Road, that famous intersection.
I don't like that one.
Yes, it's a busy place sometimes. There's a set of potholes that are developing there, and they are actually toward the neighborhood as opposed to at the edge of Irishtown Road. For lack of a better description, there's a paved apron that goes from Irishtown Road into Brookfield Road, probably 15 feet. And where the edge of the apron meets the old road, so to speak, the old Brookfield Road, there's some pretty big potholes developing, so,
Okay.
sorry.
Nope.
Okay, now we move forward. We have a single item on our consent agenda. I'm sorry, anybody else for administrative business, quasi? Okay, hearing none, we press on. Okay, our consent agenda item, to lift Phase 1 water restrictions.
Yes, we discussed that during the manager's report at the May 1st meeting, and we did not take an official vote. As I stated briefly in that meeting, the Rainbow Lake is at the spillway level. Our wells are slowly improving. We are optimistic. We don't have any additional numbers, but we got tons of rain the past 2 weeks. So staff's recommendation is to go ahead and lift. We recommend lifting Phase 1 water restrictions.
Great, okay. All in favor, or any discussion? Well, let's get the vote moving forward. Is there a motion to accept lifting the Phase 1 water restriction?
I'll make a motion to lift the Phase 1 water restrictions.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion's been made by Commissioner Blanchard. It's been seconded by Commissioner Buckman. Is there any further discussion? Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Commissioner Blanchard, anything? No? Okay, I did see the water yesterday. It seemed almost above the spillway coming off of Rainbow Lake. So, and
Good.
it does seem all the streams over land are pretty charged up. So there's water moving, which is positive for our wells. Therefore, call to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, very good. The motion carries 3-0. Commissioners Buckman, Blanchard, O'Donnell in favor, Commissioners Sweeney and Ritz absent.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving forward. We now turn to our central singular item, the initial budget presentation for fiscal year 2018. And here we
Probably
go.
one of them.
That's good.
Yep.
No, that,
Anybody want
Mayor,
the
that's
lights
good.
You guys want the lights down?
I'm fine.
You're good?
I have to be able to read.
Okay.
I got to read my notes.
Oh, yeah, sure. That's pretty important.
Yeah.
Take a look. You like that or no?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Negative. I'll just wait for Commissioner Blanchard to come back. Staff began meeting with budget preparations in the middle to late March with staff. We had regular department head meetings, so staff had a lot of input. The department heads had a lot of input on what they need in each of their departments. And as we go through the budget line by line, Mr. Tabler will go over most of it. We do have visual aid this year because talking about numbers for 2 hours is painful, and some visual aids might help. We did not get any questions from anybody, so we're ready to start.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Tonight, we'd like to go through the proposed 2018 budget and try to answer any of your questions. Again, we hope you've taken the time to look over the budget that we passed out last town meeting. We're going to go through each of the sections: the general fund, the capital projects fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund. We're going to point out any changes that are noticeable. We'll try to explain to you ahead of time so that maybe we can answer your questions ahead of time. As I go through each of the departments, at the end of each department, if you have questions, please ask. We'll try to do our best to help you with your questions. And if there's a specific question that you have that we're not able to answer, tonight, we'll certainly look into it and get back to you shortly and get that answer to you as soon as we can, and certainly have that for the next town meeting.
Okay. Now, I'll just share something. Mr. Blanchard has a calculator out. I'm assuming Commissioner Buckman, your phone will be the calculator mode.
Left
Okay,
mine
I'll
on
be
the
doing the
desk.
same. So we're not going to be using these devices to communicate outside of the meeting, but rather to do
Yep.
calculations.
This is, yeah, no.
So,
I don't think I can talk about this.
Mr. Mayor, I know you're very
Sitting out,
sensitive to
too.
these digital
And I
issues, so,
forgot my
Bring
ruler.
mine up.
very good.
Okay. If you take your notebook that we passed out last meeting, if you turn to the first page, I guess at the very first is the table of contents. Please use that as a reference as I go through the different funds and different departments. First area we'll look at is the general fund. If you turn to page 3 of your notebook, on that page it gives you an outline and of each of the departments in the general fund as far as the revenues and the expenses, the corresponding expenses for the general fund. Use this page as a reference as I go through everything. This kind of gives you the big picture of everything for the proposed budget. Let's see. Okay, so okay. The first section we'll look at is the general fund revenues, which begins on page 5. We made a slide that shows the fiscal year 2017 budget, last year's budget. The total revenues we had budgeted last year were $1,687,388, and we have a pie chart which shows the different sections, the different departments of the general fund revenue. This year, our general fund revenue will increase by about $50,000, which is good. Total revenue for general fund we have budgeted is $1,743,959. And if we look at page 5, it shows the different departments for general fund revenue, the taxes, license and permits, the funds we get from the state and the county. The next page has our service charges that the town has, and then the last section is the miscellaneous revenues. We'll start off with the taxes, the tax section on page 5. We anticipate getting more taxes this coming fiscal year. As you see, the real estate taxes, we think we're going to get a little bit more than that. The last couple years, that has trended up a little bit. Personal property tax, we believe we're going to get slightly more. As you can see, the different line items are roughly the same. Local income tax, we have increasing. And for the total for that department, we have $931,000 as budget. These numbers and all our general fund revenues are either amounts that we can see the last few years, what we've received, or we would, some of the categories we get notices right from the state or the county that tell us how much we'll receive. Under licenses and permits, we believe we're going to receive the same for that. That's our business license and the cable tax franchise fees that we receive. Monies from the state. Our highway user tax. In total, we got notice from the state that we would receive $97,073. That's split between line 4201 and 4203. Part of that is a one-time state grant that's being sent to the municipalities. Our portion is $71,187. That looks a little bit different than what we had as far as the budget last year. We had put the entire amount on that 4201 line item. So to compare that, you'd want to look at 4201 and the 4203. And we do not know of any grant income that's we anticipate this coming year, but we hope to get some, I'm sure.
We just don't have any set amount. So unless we know that it's absolutely been approved, we have submitted for a POS grant.
Okay,
But until we know that it's 100%, it's best not to include it.
sure. Is that related to the dog park or the pool?
No, this grant would be a new round of POS money.
Okay,
And we are going to submit for paving the pool parking lot to go along with the new pool. A new sidewalk, new stormwater management, things like that, and which will also make it ADA compliant, because right now, with being gravel, it's difficult for anybody handicapped to get into the pool.
Great. Okay.
Moving on to the county funds that we receive. For county tax equity, we got a notice from Frederick County that we'd be receiving a little under $400,000 for the coming year, which is a big help to us. That's about $30,000 more than we had received the prior year. So of the $50,000 is for the general fund increase, $30,000 of that is coming from the county.
Ask you a question about that. This is something I always every year budget I always mean to ask. Exactly how is county tax equity calculated in one municipality? Is there a way to kind of explain that in a short way to?
That I'm not quite sure. We get a notice certainly. It's I'm sure we get a sheet from the county that has all the different municipalities that break down the portion to each of those municipalities. I'm not sure of
With the formulas
but I can try to
okay.
find out.
Could you? I mean, it's one of those things I mean to ask. I think every year and I forget. And this year I'm like, there's the things I want to ask about.
You know it's based.
I mean, that doesn't affect my decision on budget. I'm just curious, like, how is it calculated? That's all.
Certainly.
I believe it's a percentage, but we'll look into it so we're sure.
Okay, cool, nice.
Okay.
No, that's good. Thank you.
I have a question for clarity. This cable television franchise fee, can you explain what that is, please?
That's we get a quarterly franchise fee from Comcast. I guess based on the contract they had signed with the town years ago.
Right. There's a franchise agreement with Comcast that was established many years ago. And basically Comcast signed an agreement with the town to be able to sell, this is just my understanding of it, to sell Comcast within and to have their equipment within the town limits.
Are we allowed to have contracts with other companies, other cable providers, or is that limit that sort of
Well, no,
locks
you
everyone else
can go
out?
get whoever you want for cable. I'm not really behind or up to date on the franchise agreement. It was actually something we were getting ready to look into.
Other cable's not really available.
Well, no, there's not a whole lot, unfortunately.
I was wondering, is that why?
No, it's the services, it's the towers, it's the pole, it's the, your utility poles, your infrastructure.
Okay.
We do have other providers looking to put towers and things up here as well.
I'd say two questions if we're pursuing that. One would be the fee that they are paying us. We might want to revisit that because it's a competitive market. The other piece is, and I'll speak to this, every year at the Maryland Municipal League Convention, we encounter representatives from Comcast, and we ask them, are we any closer to having improved service with higher capacity, like cable, fiber optic? And they say no. And the reason they do this is because there's a cost in infrastructure to them to go to isolated areas. But the other part is that hinders us as a business center. Businesses need that capacity to do business competitively when we're talking about something that has, a higher level of trading than just our front end retail here. So that would be something it's definitely to our advantage to give more attention to.
Staff and I were actually, Ms. Nail and myself were actually just talking about it, looking to upgrade some of our audio equipment. And one thing that we would have to do is we'd have to utilize an attorney to negotiate or renegotiate that franchise agreement. So it may be worth it.
Sure,
And
it
we
would
will
be.
certainly look into that.
Is there any other questions from page 5?
We're good?
One thing we want to point out tonight is our real estate tax revenues. As you can see from the chart that we have there, our real estate tax revenues, you can see the trend there, where it has been higher in prior years and has kind of flattened out the last 4 or 5 years. Ms. Willits, do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, one of the things that I did preparing for this budget this year after meeting with another town manager was I went back and gathered all the historical data for everything back to 2009. And one of the things that Mr. Tabler and I looked at was your real estate tax revenue. It has continued to drop since the audited year of fiscal year 2012. And your tax rate has remained the same at 36 cents per $100, all the way back to 2005 at least, because we just talked to the county, and if they wanted to go back any further, we had to pull historical data. So your tax rate hasn't increased since at least 2005. And basically, your revenue has only increased since 2009, your general fund revenue, which we'll get to on the next slide. But this has a big impact on why your general fund revenue is not increasing.
Okay. If you turn to page 6, service charges, you'll see that in total, the service charges for the town, as far as the budget, is lower than the prior year. The big factor here is the pool being closed for half the year of the fiscal year. So you'll see in those categories are towards the end of that section where each of those categories have been budgeted lower. You have things like permits and fines and parking meter revenue. We also have the utility charges for our refuge service, our trash service that we have for the town. We look at those, and those would be roughly the same. So any of the lower amounts in that section is associated with the pool. Yes, Ms. Buckman.
What is tipping?
It's garbage,
That's your
isn't it?
trash at the landfill, what it costs your contractor to dump the trash that's collected in town at the landfill.
And that's actually the portion on your bill that it fluctuates a little bit. That's why your refuge charge is slightly different each quarter
Why
on
is
your
that a
water
revenue?
bill.
If it's an expense?
Because we charge you pay for it as the town resident.
We pay for that as
It's part of the
service from
billing.
the town.
Yep, that's part of the billing of the
Does
town.
that make sense? Okay.
Okay. The next section, the miscellaneous revenues, those are things like just some of the smaller things, the vending machines, the merchant store credit card machine we have out front, our rental properties that we have, and we've added a couple of line items concerning the park pavilion. As you can see, with the park pavilion, those are new and added ones. But they also list our rentals that we have. One thing I want to point out is under the Up County line item, that's higher this year, but that's a fact. Part of that is the accounting of that is the rent for the entire year. We put this year's budget, we're putting a portion towards the capital projects fund for that building. In prior years, we would put that aside as the rental payments were made, but we're having that as part of the budget process tonight. So that's why there's no increase in rent. It's just how it's on the paper between Fund 1 and Fund 2. And you'll see that later when we go over the Fund 2 transfers. So in all, the budgeted revenues that for the 2018 is at $1,743,959. Again, that's an increase of a little over $56,000.
Which actually is about equal to about 3.24% since last fiscal year. And just showing trends, again, if you go back all the way back to fiscal year 2009, if you look at your general fund revenues that have come in, you've only had about a 2% overall increase in your revenue since 2009, with your biggest increase in 2012.
Okay, a question related to of course, the Scott Road Farm, the crep grass native wildland. Was it native grass project? Is what we're receiving income for the rent of the property? Is that correct?
Yes,
Is that still
that's
it?
correct.
Okay. I'm not going to ask my favorite duration question, but I'll ask it
Hasn't
again
changed
later.
much.
Yeah, it's getting closer to its end, though.
Yes.
But that money used to be assigned to the upkeep, if I recall correctly, of the barn that we more or less have deconstructed. Where's that money going now? Do we know where that's assigned?
if I recall, in capital improvement, or in your CIP budget, there isn't a line item for Scott Road Farm.
There is or is not?
There is not.
That's what I was wondering.
So it's probably designated just simply to your parks.
Okay.
But
Okay.
in this budget, I was not aware of that, so it was not designated specifically anywhere, and there's not been a line item for Scott Road Farm since I've looked at it.
Okay, and there hasn't been, that's what I'm kind of wondering.
Correct.
And I didn't notice this before.
There has not been one.
So, well, I'll revisit this at a future point in time,
Okay.
either tonight or in our next meeting. But I might have a use for those funds, which is kind of what I'm getting at. Sorry,
Need
Mr.
some
Mayor.
disclosure.
We'll get there. For the greater good of the community, sir.
Moving on to the general fund expenses.
Your child go to school.
We showed 2017 budget. We had a total budget of $1,687,388. For last year's budget, or the budget that we're in now, one thing I want to point out is the amount that we had for transfer, which was $121,812 for fiscal year 2017. When we put up 2018, that amount has increased to $218,341. So there's additional amounts this current proposed budget to transfer to Fund 2, an increase to 218. And we'll look at that when we go over Fund 2. But just going through the expenses for each of the departments, we'll start on page 8 for Department 10, the legislative and executive. And first thing I'd like to explain is for each of the departments, at the top you have your salary and wages, your overtime, and your things associated like your FICA taxes, state unemployment, workman's comp, pension, health insurance, those types of things. As we go through each of the departments, you see that some of the departments have monies that are higher than the prior year, and other departments have less. Overall, across the board for all funds, for the salaries, this year we're recommending having the standard step increase with a 0% cost of living adjustment. In total, the amount of increase from 2017 budget year to 2018 is 1.5%. And so as you go through each of the departments, realize that, some of the departments are lower, some are higher, based on where we anticipate different employees allocating their time throughout the year. So,
Historically, the salary adjustments have been anywhere between 2% and 4%. So this year, with only a 1.5% increase, with no COLA, we believe is fair. That's not the word I wanted.
So as we go through Department 10, the legislative and executive, we have our wages and our associated costs that go with that. In total, the department has slightly less in it. Last year, we had budgeted $122,801. This year, we have $119,792. Part of the decrease in this department and other departments is we had budgeted additional consulting expense for last year based on what we may have occurred. That's no longer in this budget. So you'll see savings pretty much across the board in each of the departments under the 5505 contractual account. Other things, there's increases in the special events and program costs, account 6901. If you want to speak to that, Kathy, or 6901.
Second
for
from the bottom.
Decorations for the town. Okay.
Special events program costs. That's going to include your the composting program, or the composting program of $400, the initial cost to the town. And there is projected, with the new square project, we were hoping, we added $5,000 to that budget for Christmas town decorations at the square. Since we're gonna have a new square, we can't budget for the entire Main Street and North and South Seat, and we wanted to do just the square radius up there and highlight and showcase the new square project. Also in there is, would be your, town functions would be anything related to, like your, Christmas tree lighting costs, any donation, some donations fall under there as well.
Would any of this be like pool party stuff or things for the summer, or like the mayor?
Pool party would come out of Fund
Parks.
6, Department 60 in Parks.
In parks,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Buckman?
2 questions.
Yeah.
One, who falls under legislative and executive? And the second question is the overtime, salaries overtime, 1,800 is like a full-time person for 45 weeks. So why are we calculating overtime and not just hiring a part-time person?
The-
Because it seems like it would save money.
To answer your first question, the commissioners and the mayor are in Department 10 as far as the home department, and I guess the overtime is the $1,800, and that would be the folks that come to the meetings. That would be an additional time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? Also, we had the opportunity of taking an outside inspector for the work the state's doing. And it was $108,000, but we talked our, am I in the right place here?
I think
Kathy?
No.
I think she asked about the overtime wages of $1,800.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, no, you're talking about the square project.
okay.
That would come under the capital improvements.
Okay, I'm sorry. Beg your pardon.
So it's decided we eliminate the mayor's salary? No, sorry.
Nah,
That goes like,
but that's just a good example. The time that folks are here at the meetings, they would allocate their time on that timesheet to this department, and that's what I was getting back to what I was saying earlier. This is the allocation we anticipate for the coming year.
And staff will, for Fund 10,
If you, hang on. Does that answer your first question about that sum?
It does, but why is it like tripled, more than tripled?
Is there an expectation of more staff time? And
We're doing a
meetings?
better job at budgeting, hopefully.
Are you saying that we weren't funding that sufficiently in the past?
That's correct.
As opposed to there's a greater need forthcoming? Does that make sense? Am I interpreting that correctly?
that's correct.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Does that help? Okay.
Yeah.
But good eye, Buckman. Yeah. All right.
You told me to study.
I told you to do your homework, all right? Not everyone does their homework, but it's good to see. Okay.
Okay. Moving on to Department 12, the next page, Planning and Zoning. Overall, this department last year was $167,161. This year, the budget is lower at $130,702. One of the big factors here is there's one less position as far as a home department under Department 12 for the Planning and Zoning. So that's where your main difference is for the year. Again, under Contractual 5505, that has been lowered because of not budgeting what we thought would be consulting fees last year or this current year. Let's see. Is there any questions on Department 12?
Okay, so coming back to contractual for 5505, we had the sum of approximately $6,000 last year budgeted. This year we have about $1,500 almost. The reduction relates to the fact that we're not anticipating contractual work for like inspections or something akin to that, or?
The majority of that would have been, if you recall, we hired a temp last year.
Okay.
So that was added to the budget.
Okay.
There was the possibility of hiring a consulting town manager, and that's not going to occur this fiscal year.
Okay.
And so that's where you see the biggest reduction in in contractual across the board.
Very good. Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. And Moving on to Department 13 Financial for page 10. That's just about where it was last year, slightly increased. Last year's budget was $167,708. This year it's $169,583. Just, some slight areas where they've went up and slight areas we went down. During the budget process, we went through each line item and looked at, where we think we would be this year and where we should be next year. So that's slightly up.
The only thing that, are you done?
No, go ahead.
The only thing I would add under 13, if you go to other expenses, that's
Right.
6,100. That's we added $1,000 for the credit card processing fee out front, but in reality, there's a revenue offset of 500. And then we also added a line item for $150 for pre-employment screening. Not that we expect to hire anybody, but when you do hire somebody, you have to go through the pre-employment. We didn't have a line item for that, and the best place for that would be under financial. So that's why that line item increased slightly.
Okay, backing up, if we could, to item 5310, 5310. The word bad draws the attention. Bad debt expense. It's about 1/4 of the way from the base of the page of the list. It goes from $300 from last year to $1,000 this year. What is the bad debt that we're budgeting for?
That's primarily based on the personal property tax that we bill to folks here in the town. What we do as part of the finalizing our financial statements each year is to look at our outstanding invoices that are due and determine how much of that invoicing we will not receive. So that's where that comes from.
Okay, so
And we do that in conjunction when the auditors are out here. Kind of as a last step, we look at our AR at the end of the year for our personal property tax and determine.
AR, you lost me.
I'm sorry, the billing that we've made
Okay.
for the personal property tax.
Okay. So, I want to make sure I understand this then. For those who aren't paying their personal property tax, we anticipate to potentially lose $1,000 on that.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's not for the collection of that debt. That's actually the debt that we
The
expect.
debt itself, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yep. It's a good question.
I tried.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
mo-
have
I'm
just
sorry, go
one,
ahead.
Yeah.
one request for future. When you're talking about expenses and revenues and stuff, usually there's a percent line, increase or decrease. I was wondering if we could request putting that in the future? Because it was really hard to disseminate all this information without having that line.
okay.
After each line item,
Just next to each item.
Similar to page 3 with the across the board.
I can give you percentages for overall departments. I have that, but I don't have it by line item.
Yeah.
Like financial only increased overall by 1.1%. And then your planning and zoning decreased by 22%.
It's easier to disseminate all this information or not disseminate.
Sort
what's
of,
the word I'm
sure.
looking for?
Filter,
Analyze it.
analyze, infer, evaluate.
That'd be easy enough.
Critical
I
thinking.
think, I
Yeah.
think the spreadsheet can do it.
Certainly. Okay. Moving on to Department 15 on page 11. Okay. Overall, this department has slightly increased from last year's budget of $121,802 to $124,377. Some of the items we'd like to point out and show to you. One of the things I want to point out right away is the 5522 electric account. Within this department, it's up slightly to 6,100 from 5,930. We'll go through each of the departments. Certain line items for electric have gone up for certain departments, and then sewer is where it really went down based on our allocation. And at the very end of the presentation, I'll go through and show that by department and the overall electric budget for the town. So we'll do that. Yes, Ms.
I
Buckman.
thought all the electric was being absorbed by solar.
You still have, that is your solar. Your electric expense is a combination of your first energy and your solar.
Right. We still show an expense in our financial statements. The source of our electric is the solar, but that we still have an expense associated with how we get our electric.
So we're still paying for electricity in a form. However, we hope to see that change. Is that our anticipated?
You always have to pay a nominal fee or a nominal bill to Potomac Edison. Like some of our bills are $3, $2. You'll always have some sort of bill that goes to Potomac Edison.
Okay.
You know, the goal is to have majority.
Your UGI invoices that we have each month get allocated to the different departments, which is our electric expense.
Right.
That's how they
Okay.
provide the kilowatt hours. So, a couple of the departments we'd like to.
Hold on a split second. So does that answer your question? I just want to make sure. I think
I
the
expected the electric to go down. For some reason.
You'll see at the end, there's, like Mr. Tabler explained, there's allocations in each department. Some departments go up, some departments go down. You'll see at the end with the overall slide, it does go down slightly.
As far as the budgeted amount.
Right.
Yeah. A couple of the line items we want to emphasize is the account 6100 other expenses. We have a slide for that. Some different things that, Ms. Willis, you want to speak on that? Or, well, this is more just reference for that line item.
Right. So what we wanted to do, some line items that you'll see, there's lots of individual expenses that make up that one line item. So for your other expenses, you'll see that the total line item is $5,500. But what makes that up is your other expenses to this building, to the 22 East Main Street garage, to Christ Community Church, the real estate tax for 140 South Seaton, and then general. And that's what makes up your $5,500.
And we've done the same with account 6200 for repairs and maintenance. That $30,000 line item, it has different things, kind of a breakdown, and as part of our budget discussions, we go through each of the subcategories to get our final number that we present in the budget. So.
And these are based off of historical data of what it's cost to repair and maintain each of our buildings. You know, this building, we are in talks, and I'll let you know, we are in talks with the county. There is hopes of them taking over all of the repairs and maintenance to this building. We haven't heard anything lately, though, which would be a great help to us. And then we maintain 22 East Main, and like I said, Christ Community Church, and then 140 South Seaton are our main expenses for buildings.
Any questions for this page? For advertising, are we advertising contracts to do work, for example? As I see, we've significantly reduced that.
There's we're required to do advertising when we advertise for the gym use twice a year.
Okay.
It would be advertising, as you said, for any contractual work that may be done.
Great. Okay.
Moving on to page 12, the first department 20, public safety police. Last year's amount for budget, we had $247,950. This year's budget is $272,041. The main line item in that department is the contractual for our police service. We got a notice for our budgeted amount of $267,691. So that's our amount that we have in for current year budget, and that's a statement we get from the sheriff's office.
And that relates to us contracting with the sheriff's office to have the deputies in town, correct?
Correct.
And that's 2 deputies, is that correct?
Yes.
At different times?
Yes.
Okay, terrific.
If you recall, right after you approved the budget last year, we were notified that their contract went up significantly, and we just adjusted for that for this budget year. As you can see, the trend here, when you had in fiscal year 2009, 2010, and I believe 2011, when you had 3 deputies, you were paying at the high point $315,847, and then it dropped for a while, and it's slowly going back up.
Department 21, Public Safety, Fire, and Rescue. There's one line item there, donations. Each year, typically, we give a $3,000 donation to the Vigilant Hose and to the ambulance, Emmitsburg Ambulance Company. So that's the $6,000 there, and that's been there for last, I know, handful of years.
Sure. Okay.
Also, below that, Department 22, Other Public Safety, that's went up slightly based on line item 6,200 repairs and maintenance. I believe that's for our warning system.
Right, the contract for the emergency warning system had a $175 contract price increase. That was the first increase in 7 years.
So, okay. So any questions on that page?
You okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We welcome at this time Commissioner Sweeney. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Had another meeting.
I hope it went well. Yeah.
Heritage Day meeting was tonight.
Did it go okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Almost done.
Good. Good.
On
good, good.
track.
Commissioner Sweeney, we're on page 13 of your
Okay,
budget
got it.
book. Okay.
Thank you.
Department 30, Public Works Streets. Last year's budget was $355,492. This year's increased slightly to $363,342. Let's see. Some of the items we'd like to point out is line item 5505, Contractual, which is actually down this year from last year's budget, based on the consulting mainly. We have a breakdown of the $22,480 that we have proposed the budget in that line item. Most of that is the snow removal. As you know, this past winter we had a really mild winter and didn't have much expense in that. So we've looked at the last several years and we've kind of come up with an average, thinking that we might not be so fortunate this coming year. Also in that is so that was the main thing we wanted to point out there. And as you can see from the graph, what prior years were for snow removal.
Mm-hmm.
So
So yeah, we took the average of the last 7 years, figuring we had a mild one this year, and we wanted to be safe, better safe than sorry. And if we don't have it, then that'll be revenue that we can transfer to the capital improvements. But if we do have a rough one, at least we've budgeted for it. Question?
Yeah, I have several questions on this page. The salary and wages, how many people is this, the guys that do all the maintenance? Is that what that,
Your Public Works Department, it would be your Public Works superintendent, and then you have 2 staff that work underneath of him, as well as 1 part-time general laborer that would budget some of his time there as well.
okay, and you said the overtime was because of snow removal?
Overtime is snow removal, road closures,
Unexpected things?
unexpected things, right.
Okay, and then it says communication is going up. Can you explain
Yep.
the detail of that and why that is?
Here. Communications.
that was for Jimmy's phone.
What was the question?
Part of
In
that.
communications right now, we have, we pay half of your Public Works Director's cell phone because he is on call 24/7. We pay half of your parking enforcement cell phone out of Department 30. You have the internet at 22 East Main Street, so they have email capability. The Verizon for the office phones over there, and then a portion of our radios is our communications. This year, I guess what added to that would have been mostly your internet. We were fortunate enough that Comcast wasn't billing us until they caught us, and now they're billing us.
Oh, dear. Now, when you say caught us,
We were unaware. No, they did not catch us. We were unaware of it.
okay.
Yes,
that'd be-
we were unaware of it. When we actually were able to reduce some costs somewhere because we found Verizon billing us for phone lines we didn't have any longer, so it balanced
Oh,
out.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Goodness, okay.
Another one?
Yes, street lights upkeep, is that replacing? Is that bulbs? $25,000?
Yes, ma'am. $2,500 for your pole,
5,000.
your fixture, and your bulbs. And just to give you a bit of information, the past 2 weeks we've lost 3 because
So I'm working on
How much
today.
are bulbs?
I don't know the individual cost of bulbs. I know that the pole, the fixture, and the bulbs itself totals about $2,500. They're LED bulbs, 40 watt. They're not cheap. And right now we have individuals that are going around and shaking these poles, and we've had 3 break in 2 weeks.
Break in half?
Break off the base and break. And they knock them down on the ground and everything breaks.
The poles?
Right in town?
In town. Yes,
On Main Street, is that correct?
that's correct. The
Okay.
deputies are working on it.
They
Okay.
were up there today.
Yeah,
So
they're
I'm working on
Okay,
it.
they're very costly.
yeah, okay. Is,
Just to that note, we are currently looking for any type of grant we can to
Okay.
make an overhaul of our poles and our fixtures because the bases are aluminum and they're getting old, rusty from salt, from like the snow and the salt.
Well, how old are they?
You're not allowed to ask
They're
questions.
gonna be replaced when the concrete gets replaced on the sidewalks? or-
No, nope.
okay, so the question, I guess, therefore, is,
So the
Is this-
$25,000
Well, hold on,
budget
hold on.
is to be able to
is
replace.
this enough? That's what I'm asking. Would there be a value to adding to that?
Let's look at,
We always
we
have
have
vandalism.
where we are so far this year. If you give us 1 second, we'll
Sure,
look at
sure,
that
sure.
line
Okay.
item. You have that, Cole?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
We've spent a little over 15,000.
Okay, so to date, we've spent, 15,000, close to, 15,000 on light poles. That does not include, I just signed a PO for another 2, so we're up to about 17,000.
So the ones we're replacing, are they structurally more sound? So that
They're new. The base will be new, the poles will be new.
aluminum new, weak,
It's their same
to
poles.
shake and
Yeah.
knock over?
No, because there'll be new bases. Right now, the bases, some of the bases are aluminum and they're rusted. So now they're being replaced with new bases and new poles. Eventually, we would like to replace all of them with something better.
So, how many do we have in stock?
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't
keep
believe
some
we
back-
have any in stock right now.
Okay.
We are in the process of ordering some new ones to put in stock.
Okay, so are the,
This
Are they-
25.
are
okay.
that part of the budget, the 25,000?
Yes, this was what was recommended by your director of public works. Was he felt he needed $25,000 in the budget for streetlights.
Well, I imagine so if they break the 3 a week.
Hopefully
Well,
they catch
also
them.
Will our insurance cover any of that? Do we have insurance on that?
Probably deductible.
You got your deductible to worry about.
How much is our deductible? A lot.
We'll get back to you on.
Can I get back to you on that one?
Oh, okay.
That will be shared in the
Question.
June meeting. How about
Right.
that?
Unfortunately, you also have ones that are hit by, vehicles
Or
or
if you
tractor
haven't-
trailers, and
But their insurance would cover that.
if
you
we
catch
get the
them.
insurance.
If we catch
We
them.
catch them.
If we catch them.
Oh, well,
So the other side is, this past week, we've seen a lot of, shall we say,
Mischief.
mischief, yes. And therefore, as the summer begins and the school years end, hopefully, such activities will be diminished.
I believe you're good with 25,000, with still having 17,000 left in there, and you only have 2 month left.
Oh, in the fiscal year, right. Okay, I'm
Correct.
thinking we're at the halfway point, but no, we're going by the fiscal year. Okay, that's encouraging, in a way. All right.
all right.
Watch it, hooligans.
Did we explain the capital outlay, what that is?
No, not yet. Capital outlay, last line, 6600. Could we hear an explanation for clarity's sake?
They just want to know what capital outlay
Page
is.
13, bottom item.
It's capital outlay is pretty much anything you buy as far as that wouldn't be caught under the other categories.
Miscellaneous
Yeah.
expenses?
Yeah.
It's basically
a
something
small
that that extends the life of something. So, say you needed to buy say you didn't have a line item for streetlight poles and you needed to buy a streetlight pole, or you didn't have a line item for
A meter.
a meter, something along those lines. That would fall under your capital outlay. Most of the times, we don't take anything out of capital outlay because we have line items to cover everything.
Typically.
Typically, yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely, go for it. Mr. Sweeney, yes, sir.
I don't know if you guys went through this while I was going or not. Do we keep the meters in stock too, or do you have to, for them being knocked off and broken?
The parking meters,
How much are they? Are they
Miss Nail,
expensive too?
how much are parking meters? $450. Fortunately, we haven't had to replace any.
Do we have any, do we keep any in stock?
There's the casings, we have some of those, and then there's also the guts,
The only reason why I'm asking, because we're getting ready to redo the town, east and west, and there's a lot of, it's not metered. It probably would be benefit that we would get income from. You know, there's not much income we can get from this, other than sewer and water that we get for the town, except for parking meters and tickets and stuff like that. But we have businesses that goes clear to the end of the town, on both sides, and
Those
I
are
think
two,
the town, why, when we tear
Operating
them up, we
supplies,
ought to
please.
finish metering the,
Next slide.
you know, down to where the other businesses are, because you got, Harrington's at the other end, and you got other businesses up the other end that we could use,
repairs
you
and
know,
maintenance.
it'd be income for the town. It might not be at first, but eventually it's going to be, like a year or two after we pay for the meters.
Sure.
In the repairs and maintenance, we did add some additional $300 for parking meter repair into the budget.
I mean, I don't know how many, I asked, for how many meters, spaces weren't metered. Do you remember how many weren't metered? I asked you last month.
oh, okay, Sue was gonna check, I know.
Oh, I never checked, but I asked staff to check, see how many meters was left.
I can, count them again for you.
Maybe to bring up next meeting, you don't have to be brought up now, but I was just wondering, while we're tearing up the street and putting the concrete back, it'd be nice to finish metering, and it's an income for the town, because we, you know, half the people down this way pay for the meters and the other half don't. Now, it's not fair for them to do that and not fair for the other one. Especially if you got businesses up that end of town. You know, there's other businesses up the other end of town. So,
Okay, well,
All right.
Let's go ahead.
we'll,
to be put, I don't know if you, I didn't know if they had it in the budget, that's why I was.
We have,
Okay.
well, if you look at repairs and maintenance, we did budget extra money, like I said, for parking meter repair, and some extra money for parking enforcement, and,
Maybe we can get some grant money for streetscape and get some, maybe for parking meters.
that's something for the board to set as an agenda item and decide if you want to add additional meters and additional,
We do that when the sidewalks are finished, or they just fold them down to the sidewalk?
I don't know. We'll have to look into it.
Yeah. It'd be nice if you couldn't, if they had to put the hole there where they would go. Even if we didn't meter them, at least we'd have it if we wanted to do it in the future. We wouldn't have to tear up the sidewalk.
well,
I don't know that they'll do that.
right. Here's a thought, and again, this is a good time for the conversation, and also it's a bad time for the conversation. But no. I mean, it's important that we talk about this. I mean, honestly, you brought it up, and I think it's fair. One thing for consideration is if there's an institutional memory where there was the intent to put meters the full width of Main Street, I think that would be persuasive. So if that were brought back to the board, I think that would help us as a group to decide it. The other thing is, and again, I harp on this, but as we redo the sidewalks, I do see there being value in eliminating all of the parking meters themselves and go with the single or the double meter boxes.
I wouldn't have a problem with that either.
Yeah, but I mean, and again, it drives up the income. There's an expense to it, but also it reduces door dings, it opens up the sidewalks, it makes them more ADA compliant. It's an accessibility thing. But these boxes, unfortunately, at this point in time, they're costly.
Yeah, I know.
And, you know, we haven't quite had the Cool Hand Luke episode of the person vandalizing all the meters. But on the other side,
I was just trying to get it in
Yeah,
before
sure.
before they, you know, why they didn't have to tear it up again.
Right. I don't know if that ship sailed or not. That's the other concern. And I'm wondering, because we're getting awfully close.
Or maybe staff can look in to see if they can put something in. I mean, can that be added in the future? You could ask them how much.
Oh,
of
I'm
a
sure it's
problem-
definitely something you can do in the future. There's a lot of
Without tearing
things.
the whole
There's a
thing
lot
up.
of things to consider when you're going to change your parking meters. If you're going to go to a box, they're extremely expensive. You're asking people to walk distances just to pay to park. You're going to need more than one. You're going to need probably a couple boxes. So they're all things that you, as a board, that are going to have to consider. I think you're better suited setting as an agenda item,
Right.
allowing staff to get all the information together so we can,
Okay.
Right.
adequately answer
I'm
your
fine with that.
questions.
So we've opened Pandora's box, but only a little bit. How about that?
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring it up while
Sure.
we're tearing everything up. And it's
Sure,
going to be. I didn't know if it was part of the information you went through already or not.
Yes. So that's your repairs and maintenance, and can you go back one slide? Just to go over, I just pulled out a couple of the line items that had a lot of things in it that made up. So your operating supplies and your public works is a total of $8,300. You'll see what that includes, and I won't go through them all, but just pull out a few. Your parking tickets, your paint, your stone, your tools, and then general. That makes up all your operating supplies. And all these numbers are based off historical data as well as conferring with staff on what they believe they will need for this upcoming fiscal year.
Anti-skid, is that an abrasive for the cold weather? Or do we know?
Commissioner Sweeney,
What?
what's anti-skid?
Where's that at?
Third item down, $2,000, green.
That might be where they put the
Yep.
abrasive stuff on so you don't slide.
For cold weather?
Yeah, or that, or some people have anti-skid shoes. Some people have that black stuff that you put on for inclines so you don't slide. I guess
Right.
Black ice.
Okay.
So you're
salt and stuff for black ice. I guess.
That's,
right. So just summing up for Department 30, overall, it's only a 2.2% increase to the overall Department 30 Public Works budget from fiscal year 17 to 18.
There's 10 now.
Moving on to Department 31, the next page, page 14, the refuge. There's a couple of wages in here. As you can see, last year, what we did this fiscal year is the amount in Department 31 typically that folks put their time to would be overtime that they have worked concerning that department. As you can see, at the wages at top is 0, and overtime wages is $3,300. The contract for our trash removal, the budgeted line items are the same, although in contractual there is a lower amount there, and we had reduced some of the line items. Mostly the general. We have a general line item there with which we reduced, but as far as our contracted service, that will be the same this year. And as you can see, that's went slightly down. It's went from $136,996 to $133,220. So that department's not as extensive as the other ones.
Your overtime is strictly for your staff to work every other Saturday or 2 Saturdays a month at the yard waste and recycling. They sit out there from 9 to 12 to keep that open.
And just curiously, that's well used? I mean, I've heard bits and pieces, some customer service related items, but also, is it being consistently used? I mean, does the expense that we're paying justify, is it a justified expense?
It's definitely justified in your fall and spring months. I would have to confer with staff, but your winter months, I'm not so sure that it is
Okay.
used.
Maybe Christmas trees.
Well, your Christmas tree time, yes. In January after Christmas,
Okay.
that's a busy time as well.
So this is yard waste,
It's yard waste.
and this is, where is this located?
At the wastewater treatment plant?
There's a drop off.
Gate.
So your cuttings, lawn cuttings.
Yes. I was just
Yep.
wondering where I'm going to
Yep,
Walkersville.
that's where you go.
I,
Oh yeah, we have our.
Good news. You don't have to go to Walkersville.
Every other Saturday from 9 to 12, or not every other Saturday,
else
the
do we
first
have
and third
there?
Saturday of the
town
month.
website? 'Cause I have
Yes.
no
It
idea.
is, yeah.
It's
Okay, so this opens up another modest Pandora's box for a future discussion. Composting. To new staffers. Perhaps there's something there we could do which would maybe green this issue and reduce the expense. I'm sure that would need its own attention, but of course, there's always the liquid issue we have, Mr. Mayor. I remember we spoke about that at one point in time. But maybe this would be a good opportunity to move forward on composting, as it is, Composting Week, and we have the big presentation in Jefferson on the 17th and so on.
Stop clicking your pen.
Word?
Stop clicking your pen.
Mr. Mayor, there seems to be a clicking noise in the room that's disrupting the recording. I don't
It's
know.
crickets. It's so quiet here.
But nevertheless.
Yes, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
But the,
Matty Shaw is going to our town clerk is going to a composting thing this week.
that's fantastic.
And we're getting
What a
those
coincidence.
and we're getting those barrels,
Sure.
and we have our green meeting tomorrow, and roll that out. So anyway,
So here's the other side of this, and this is something for consideration for the board. I know that sometimes if we try to emphasize an idea just through advertising, however we do it, there's value in it. Like, it can change certain behaviors, it can adjust certain behaviors. So if we're able to encourage members of our community to compost, to also be a little bit more aggressive in their recycling, doesn't that reduce our tipping fee rather significantly, potentially? I mean, doesn't it have the potential to do that?
Yes, if
Okay.
you're going to compost, it will reduce your tipping fees because
Sure.
they will not be hauling all your food to the landfill.
Right, food
And that's
scrap
the whole
and-
idea behind composting,
So we've got the food scrap, we have yard waste as appropriate, and
recycling.
and the recycling. So I think we do have some means by which we can significantly reduce our refuse costs. But I think the burden falls to us is through education and consistently getting the message out there. Because I don't know as a board that we're doing that. And if we just look at it from a fiscal green perspective, I think we can save people a lot of money.
Composting where? At your house?
Well, on site, like on your property, okay, at a person's home, but also emphasizing the value of recycling.
My next door neighbor composts now.
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you what, it's made a difference in what we dump and send to the dump and what we have. And also we're using in their garden. But, my point is, I think if we invest in an advertising campaign or just getting a consistent message out there, I think that expense and time would be offset by the reduction of the cost that we're spending in tipping and so on. And just for clarification, do we charge businesses for recycling, or is that the county? Because I don't see anything related to recycling in the budget.
The county.
Okay, it's the county.
It's a county expense.
Okay, so do we charge businesses for recycling?
I'm sorry?
Do we charge businesses for recycling? That question came to me from a business owner.
No.
And I'm not aware that we do.
No. I don't
Okay.
believe so, because the town doesn't do
Correct.
recycling. It's a county-sponsored program.
Okay.
Now, if the county charges them, I don't know.
Sure. Okay. But when interacting with a business, our fees are strictly related to garbage collection, refuse collection,
Yes.
correct? Okay,
Yes.
not recycling. Okay.
Right.
So I need to clarify that with somebody. Terrific. Thank you.
So if somebody would like to have a recycled blue box, the big ones, they would have to call the county.
The county, yes. And we do have all the county information on recycling on our website as well.
Okay. No, we only have, do we have recycling out at the plant or just
Yes.
the yard? So we do have recycling bins out there?
Yes.
I
You
thought
can
so. I remember
recycle and do
seeing them.
yard waste. To do yard waste, you have to be a town resident and provide ID. To do recycling, you have to be a county resident.
Great.
Yeah, so there is recycling bins out there too.
Moving
I've seen
to
'em.
page 15, Department 60 Parks.
Yes, sir.
And you can see the budget for the proposed budget for the coming fiscal year. We have it 150,769. Last year it was 184,358. Again, the major factor here is the pool being closed and paying for half a year of contractual services for the pool. Couple of the other things we wanted to show and emphasize. One's the operating supplies for the parks, which we have a slide for. We won't necessarily go through each of those, but you can see they're for things such as the pool and the buildings, the dog park that's being constructed, and that's the $2,400, which is in operating supplies. Also in repairs and maintenance, last year or this year, it's total budget's $11,200. You can see that's split up among a variety of items to do with your parks. So that slide gives you a breakdown of that. Under account 6901, special events and programs for parks. In that section, we have a small budget for the after-school club program that we have. Things as farmers market, the community garden, the pool, and there's an amount for community functions, and then a general catch-all for that line item. Let's see. The last line item under donations, the $1,500, that would be the yearly donation for the fireworks.
Okay.
So that's the $1,500, and that's what we've contributed the last couple years. So overall, as you can see, the parks has went down as far as budget from last year, mainly because of the pool being closed half a year.
I need to ask a question. Now, this budget will be going in effect and will last until July 1st of next year, or June 30th?
June 30th, yes.
Assuming we adopt this one.
Yeah, should we?
Yeah, it's July 1st, 2017 through.
Do we have any pool? If we do a pool contract for next year, will we have money to cover that? I don't know if we pay them before the.
Yeah, we put in, if you look under contractual for
parks.
5505, we budgeted half of it for April to June. We budgeted about $25,000 for a pool contract.
Okay,
For
I see it.
half of
I
the
wanted to
fiscal
make sure.
year.
Yes.
I didn't see it. I know the pool will be open like a month or so before. Before the.
Well, we have to start paying that contract,
Correct.
in about April. So we'll have to pay April, May, and June. So we budgeted about $25,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's roughly 3 months in each fiscal year for the summer that the pool is open.
All right.
Are we factoring in, sorry,
No, it's fine. I'm fine.
are we factoring in potentially later hours on that, and that if it does have lighting, I know we're going back to the drawing board figuratively.
We will not have adequate lighting this fiscal year. And I can
Okay.
explain that when we get to Fund 2.
No problem.
We have to, it's a plan.
Okay. Phase
Yes.
1.
Yes, Phase 1.
Awesome.
We
Okay.
will, I'll explain it all.
I'm
Commissioner?
obviously overly conscious about overtime because you pay a person much more for overtime, and it seems like we have an exorbitant amount of overtime. What is the overtime for in parks?
Actually, like I said, the budget for salaries only went up by 1.4%. So your overtime for the parks would be staff to work the pool parties. We are still going to have 3 pool parties. It would be for staff that has to come in and make any unexpected repairs. We've had staff have to come in and make some repairs to the bathrooms when they've been rented in the parks. It's basically an unexpected item.
Ms. Buckman, I think it's not necessarily a change in how staff has had their time. It's just, I believe it's better budgeting and more proper budgeting as for that line item.
Just in case they need it. I mean, if we don't need it, it'll go back in the general fund.
Right.
Okay,
But they haven't listed it as a budget item in the past. Now they are.
I see. Okay.
So
All right, that makes more sense.
I guess the question is, where was the money coming from in the past then?
Well,
There budget transfers or?
it's all part of each of the departments is looked at separately when it's audited. So if it's not in one line item, it may be in another. It's looked at, across the board as far as the departments.
And it also comes down to where people were allocating their time.
Okay.
And it may not have been allocated correctly. You may have a Department 30 staff member who did do overtime in the parks, and it wasn't allocated correctly, and we're making sure it's allocated. So we have a better idea of where everybody is spending their time.
Okay.
And
So we
we've-
can budget correctly.
And we've emphasized if it's, say it's for a pool party and it is overtime, then it should go to overtime in parks.
Okay.
It shouldn't necessarily go to your home department. if you're not in Department 60. So we're trying to be more accurate in our budgeting, and we've told employees to try to be as accurate as possible so that we can get a better read on where we do need to budget things in future years. So,
Thank you.
sure. That's okay.
It's overheating.
That's okay.
Oh, no worries.
It's
It happens.
overheated.
It's getting tired.
I'm going to continue on.
Do you want to open a window, let some cool air in? Maybe that'd help.
I'm okay
Oh,
without that.
yeah, the air conditioning's, it's gonna be 90 Wednesday, so hopefully the air conditioning will kick on.
Well, we have two sides of
My
this
room
building.
does it
You have the hot
over
side of the
there,
building and the cold side of the building, and this is the hot side.
So,
Here we go. Okay, page 16,
yep. I'm going to go
Department
ahead.
70.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and move to page 16. The first department there is your debt service, and that's various loans that we have out for certain items that we've had in the past, and those numbers come directly from the loan agreements that we have, and those numbers should be precise on what those numbers should be. And then we get to Department 75.
Hold on for
Go
that,
ahead.
if we could. 7001, GO principal. GO means,
General obligation principal.
okay, and general obligation interest. Okay. Do we need more information as to what the debt, the areas where we're indebted? I mean, do we feel we have enough there?
The loans that we've had?
Sure.
Bob, is that
There's a
just assume?
in the audited statements each year. There's a list of the different loans that the town has. I know. Let's see.
Well, does anybody on the board have any interest in seeing that clarified, or are we okay
I
with
feel
it
like
as
I've
it
seen
is?
that before, but we can review again what those loans are.
Okay.
I can provide a list for
Sure.
you.
Obviously not right now.
Yeah.
But we're not. I'm not expecting that
through
right
each
now.
other.
I don't think Commissioner Buckman's expecting it right now. Is that accurate?
That's
Okay.
fine.
So, at a future point in time, like our next meeting
Yeah.
for this budget.
I
Yeah.
have a question, I'm sorry.
Sure. No. Hop in.
It went back to the page 15, just real quick. Mr. Ritz is not here, and I know he said something about having,
Concerts and parks.
concerts in the parks. I wanted to make, is that covered under the special events?
Yes, there's 1,200
Okay.
in there for community functions. That would include, which we've already made payment for this year, would be his summer concert. that
Okay, I want
he's-
to make sure he had it, because
Yes,
he's not here.
we
I
do.
don't know if he said anything to you or not.
Yes.
Here's okay. Again, Mr. Sweeney, I'm glad you brought that up, and you know, I realize Mr. Ritz isn't here to advocate for this, but having been the parks liaison in the past, that was a really limiting budget item.
I
I
bet
mean,
it
we
was.
could not get anybody to look at us seriously because
It's very
we
small
we
amounts
had
of
such a
money.
tiny budget.
Yeah.
I mean, that might pay for a drummer.
Artists
I
want
mean,
to pay more money.
and is there an interest to see a higher quality of entertainer come through, like a band or whatnot? I think the concerts have value, but we've always kind of
You'd have to up the ante.
right. We'd have to. I mean, honestly, I think we need, if we go with, I don't know, 2 concerts, it would almost be like $5,000 to be truthful about it, and with the intent of seeing money come back. I mean, because we're not going to get anybody for
It
$1,200.
just doesn't happen. I've been in the same position. I agree with you. We couldn't get the acts we really wanted to based with that kind of money.
Yeah.
I agree, but I'm in my kitchen doing my dishes. I'm like, what is that music? I look out and there's a concert, and
Sure. You had no
there's
idea.
no one there,
Right.
and I didn't even know about it.
Right.
So there's another problem also.
But here's
How do we get this information out that this is going on?
when Commissioner Joy was here, literally he and I would beat the bushes. We would hand out things to businesses. We would go up and down Main Street with little flyers and whatnot, and people were responsive to a point, but also then they're looking at the band and they're like, you know.
Yeah.
It's got to be. There has to be some value to it. Now, like I don't think we're going to get like the airmen of note from the U.S. Air Force here or something like that, but there's value in getting. There would be value in my mind of having at least a concert with a somewhat headline person or group or whatnot that goes beyond, like, you know, Joe and his puppet. Sorry, not Mr. Ritz, but you know, Frank and his puppet show, or you know, John the one-man band, or whatever. You know, so.
I
don't
think
know.
it's valuable to.
So I would suggest between now and then, between now and the June meeting, the first June meeting, hopefully the only June meeting, we might want to give consideration to finding money to fund a better concert, because I think we all enjoy the idea of a concert. We all, support the idea of music, but I think we gave it a really valid try. Commissioner Mellor put some energy into it, and it still wouldn't, it still wouldn't draw a crowd.
You need crowd.
It's something that would be a benefit to the community, something that people would actually want to go to and do. So,
So you need sort of like an act like we just had for Community Day. We just had a heritage. We'd had Elvis. Elvis is coming to Emmitsburg, or something like that. That's the only. I mean, I can tell you how much it cost. He was $600 for the Elvis, and it was $1,000 for the two we had for Community Day. So one was $600. The other one was $400. That was for two people.
but for how many people in the act?
They played for 4 hours.
Okay, but you had one person and one person?
Yes.
For each individual?
Yeah. They
Okay.
did Buddy Holly. They did Dean
Okay.
Martin, and they did.
So I'm talking about actually having a band where you have
Yes.
different people with
And
instruments.
I'm talking about one artist was paid $600
Right.
without any equipment.
Right. So, yeah. So,
So you agree we should up the,
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
I mean-
Just tell you what it is.
Mr. Joy will roll over in his living room, but like a reggae band or something, I mean, something to bring people out to
I'm game for
enjoy
reggae.
an awesome park in the middle of the summer on a nice night and have some fun. Okay, moving forward. Thank you, staff.
Okay. So for the general fund, in the general fund, when we take our budgeted revenues minus the budgeted expenses that we've went over in the departments, our interfund transfer amount to go to the capital projects fund is an amount of $218,341, as currently in the budget, and that's more than last year. Last year was $121,812. This next section in Capital Fund 2 will go over where we propose putting that excess general fund amount and designating it in Fund 2.
I'll take this one.
So if you'll turn to page 18.
Okay, well, hold on. Anybody questions for page 16?
What's that?
I'm gonna do this one.
no.
No questions for page 16? Okay. Thank you, sir.
So if you,
The only thing I'll point out here is, just going back through, the historical data, and you'll see just since 2009, you've only increased your your expenses by 9%. So your staff and your town has learned to work very efficiently without having to increase your expenses by very much. So 9% increase in 9 years, that's 1% each year over averaged, is a not a bad increase.
okay. So the capital projects fund, page 18. I'll let Ms. Willits kind of explain the amount for the 218 that we'd like to designate.
Let me get my notes out real quick. So for your capital projects, basically that's transferring the excess revenue from Fund 1 to Fund 2 for your capital improvement projects. And looking at the overall needs of the town, talking to staff and where, and these are just recommendations, where we believe that this excess would be best suited for this upcoming fiscal year. The first recommendation would be for a $10,000 transfer to planning and zoning, and that is for the GIS. And the goal this year with GIS is the mapping. There's several things: the mapping of the water and sewer lines, or the beginning of the mapping, and then the glossaries and the tables. And then 4,000 of it is going back into Department 15. The Christ Community Church, that's a portion of the rent that Mr. Tabler mentioned earlier. There is a $14,000 recommended transfer into 22 East Main Street. 22 East Main Street needs to be waterproof. We're experiencing black mold. So this is pretty much a must-do project. If you move down to Department 30, 340 for vehicles. This is a transfer that's made yearly. It is $45,000 to the vehicle fund. This year, we're looking to replace the town car. Your town car is a 2002. Lost my note now. I had what it was.
Ford Escort?
Yep, 2002 Ford Escort with about 90,000 miles on it, and it is a very rough rider.
I believe that's the Silver Bullet, if I'm
The
not
Silver
mistaken.
Bullet.
Silver Bullet.
Yes, the Silver Bullet.
Fine vehicle, I might add.
So we're looking to replace that this coming fiscal year. And then we do have a plan over the next the next 3 years. We're going to need to replace our mini dump, which is about $55,000. The following year, we're going to need to replace the backhoe, and the year after that, we'll probably have to replace our dump truck, because all of those vehicles are very aged. So that's the idea behind moving your $45,000 into vehicles, so that you can build your budget to be able to replace these things or these items.
Will you be trading those items in, or just?
Some of them, I believe some of them can be traded in for some money. We will obviously sell or trade whatever we possibly can. There is a $1,300 transfer to Department 30, line item 370, $1,300. It's for the flowers and upkeep at the square. Once you have the new square in with the new landscaping, the new flowers, we're going to want to keep it looking nice. If you come down to Department 30, 385, curbs, gutter, sidewalks, and roads, it's a transfer from the general fund of $44,754. That's basically your paving budget and your striping budget for this fiscal year. And that's something that you got to take care of your streets. And then we come down to Department 30 in general. We'd like a $15,000 general fund transfer for a new salt shed. I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but the county stores its salt out at our wastewater treatment plant. They have graciously supplied us with salt for years. They have blacktopped our road out there. They're looking to store more salt and have just simply asked for a salt shed.
That's a fair relationship. I think we've been on the benefit.
It's been they've taken a
yeah,
very good
benefiting
care
end
of
it.
us. Staff has been very pleased with everything. They plow the road so our staff can get back in there. If you move to Department.
Well, let's back up
Yes.
if we could. Staying on this page. Any questions on this page, first of all? Okay. The 22 East Main Street, the waterproofing, are we also doing demo in the building to remove like sheetrock or?
This would be, I don't have the quote in front of me of what all it entails, but that is the cost to get rid of the whole project.
Okay, all right,
It's basically the whole project cost.
Great, okay. A question I have regarding Department 30, 372 Town Square construction drawings. I was under the impression State Highway was providing those. Is this for the water and sewer project in the square?
No, this is
Or is
just
this-
how initially you had it set up when we received the monies for the square project. And I believe that is part of money that came in that was designated towards that, but it can
Okay.
now be used for other items related to the square project. So if you look at town square design, construction drawings, the square reserve for future, that's all money related to the square project.
Right.
The water line money will come straight out of your water and sewer fund.
Okay, but the drawings, the expense that we're paying for here, that we're budgeting for here, I guess I'm confused. Is this money from the town, or is this money that we receive from a grant from the state?
This is just a step back
Sure,
for just
sure,
a
sure.
minute. I'm sorry, I should have said this initially.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
For page 18 and 19,
Okay.
just to explain how the page is laid out.
Okay.
And that first column, to your left there are all the departments and the various projects under those departments. The first column there, the fiscal year 17 current balance, that's the current balance as of today. As far as what has been designated in prior years.
Okay.
Through either the budget process or through budget transfers in the fiscal year, minus any of the expenses that we've actually incurred. So those are the current designated balances. That second column there is the proposed budget, which is the part of that is the 218,341 excess, and also there's about 50,000 that Ms. Willits will go over as far as transfers within the within Fund 2 that we'd like to propose also, and she'll go over that also. But that net amount makes up that second column, and then that third column would be those two columns added up. So
Okay, but I'm still not
To answer your question,
clear.
that is a grant. So
Okay,
if you look at
great.
the town square reserve for the future, the 96,000, that's town money that you as a board have designated over the year. That's actual town money.
Right,
The
okay.
town square construction drawings is part of a grant. Your
Great.
town design square was part of a grant as well.
Terrific.
that-
Okay. Yeah, that definitely helps 100%
Okay.
because I didn't want to see something that wasn't there before, so to
No.
speak. So,
Nope.
and
Thank you.
just for better
clarifying that.
understanding. Okay, next item, question. Town square reserved for the future, totally on board with that being ours, and, that's a decision made by an earlier board and budgeted. Are we anticipating spending that money this coming year with the completion of the square and the sidewalk? Is that accurate?
Over the course of the project, we will spend that money, yes.
Okay, okay. And the course of the project, end time, our best guess?
Estimated now is June 1st, 2018. 1 year.
Okay, so the sidewalk piece do we have a start date for the sidewalk?
Oh, so they're not doing the square to 2018?
June
Okay.
of this month.
In a perfect world.
We'll push
June.
it back to June.
Yeah.
Okay.
June.
I didn't hear that. Before it was the last part of May, and the last.
Understood.
Before that was last part.
We've
of
had a lot of rain
Okay,
and stuff.
we have, and no, if it's the same crew that I'm watching work down in Hyattstown,
It is,
we'll be lucky to have that crew because they're a good crew. So I've been watching them for a while, but
Wish they'd just tell us that.
sure. Okay, paving and striping. Okay, the expenses there. A while ago, I asked this question. I'm afraid I don't recall the answer if it came forward or not. So I apologize if I'm redundant here. But we do have. I'm hoping we do have a cycle identifying priorities and paving and so on. I mean, we've created a.
Yes, your Director of Public
program.
Works has a plan each year going into the fiscal year of what the priority areas are.
Okay.
And I'll explain, you'll see in that line item, you'll see a parentheses. That was a negative. We did have some unexpected paving that we had to take care of. So we made some budget transfers out of the general fund, and then I'll explain some interfund transfers to bring that balance back to its yearly 65,000.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Just wanted to confirm that.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you move to Department 60, your pool, 191. Out of the general fund, we are looking to make from the general fund, we're looking at transferring 79,644. And what that encompasses is your additional cost for the lighting. After speaking real quick with the contractor, that it's a plan. It's going to be a couple-year plan. Right now, we are going to do the inside of the pool lights. They have to be done now, or you don't do them at all.
Right. Good.
So it was decision to go ahead and move forward with that, and that's caused a little bit of delay. I got the official stamp plans back today. No, not today, last week. And he is at the permitting office now. So you will have interior lights. The exterior lights can be done at a later date. He advises we don't have to break up the concrete. So,
Put it on the outside of the grass.
yeah, it's going to be on outside of the concrete in the grass area. And then it is the additional electrical work that comes with rewiring the pump room and the interior or the inside of the pool lights. There was an additional expense. And then the $5,000 for the diving board. So I did budget in there with that 79,000, a little bit of wiggle room, about a $16,000 wiggle room. the just-in-case factor. We don't use it, there'll be money left over, and it can be transferred to another project if need be. Or you can leave it there to pay for the additional lighting in your next year plan. Moving down, recommended to move 4,643 into the dog park. The clearing bids for the dog park came in higher than expected. And then that is all the recommended transfers out of your general fund that make up the 218,341.
Was there a reason for the increase in the cost for the clearing?
Well, when the grant was originally submitted almost, I don't know, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, estimates were not gotten. Thank you. And so we didn't have a clear idea of how much this dog park would actually cost. There are some trees in there that must go once the forestry department got in there and looked. And I will let you know, Ms. Shaw came across an excellent dog park grant that's due at the end of June, that we are going to apply for some additional funding. And we'll move through it.
Just make sure we're talking to the dogs about this, yes?
Yes.
Make sure they're on board with it. Okay,
Next one, Kathy.
great. Any questions
Any
related to
questions?
this?
I'm sorry, Cole.
No? Okay.
That's the increases and the decreases, or?
Do I have that? Do I have that? Okay. Now, at the same time we're doing the budget, we had recommended internal transfers within your fund too, where we saw that we needed to move some money. We figured doing it with the budget is the better time. Is there somebody here?
Hold on for a moment.
Somebody tried to get in?
Yeah.
Everything okay?
I don't know.
I'm starting to freak out.
Hello?
Did Amy go out?
Hi. Oh, very good. Okay. All right. Terrific.
I'm not supposed to clean.
Thank you.
All the cleaning.
Write that down.
The gentleman's here to clean.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is about the time they come in usually.
Yeah, the AK for us.
Gavel. Very good with it.
I don't remember what I did.
All right.
All right, I gotta put my glasses on. Okay, so within your fund two, we made some transfers. We increased some areas by the 48,787. We took 43,000 from your impact fees, and now your impact fees.
This is the next slide.
You have that on the next slide.
Yep, that's the increases, and then the next slide's the decreases, where it's coming from.
Okay, so your 43,000, I can explain, we're putting that into your curbs, gutters, sides, and roads. Like I said, we did have a deficit after last year, and this 43,000 combined with your general fund transfer will bring you to your yearly 65,000 in paving. And then you have, I gotta take my glasses on and off, my apologies. Out of 140, we added $2,131 to 140 South Seaton, because we had spent some money in there. We added 356 to the pool. We added 1,300 to your ball field upkeep. And then we added another 2,000 into your dog park. And that makes up your internal increases. And then this slide will show you where we took the money from. We took 4,000 from your impact fees. Your impact fees per your code is $1,200 for any new home that's built. So that money's been sitting in there for quite some time. In your code, 1,200 of it comes from each house. 200 has to go to your early warning system. And then the rest of your impact fees goes to basically infrastructure for upkeep. So that's your paving, your roads, anything related to that, to your infrastructure. Then we took 4,000 from your other public safety, which had a total of, where am I at here? 14,535 in it already. We took 4,000 of that, and 2,000 went to 140 South Seaton, and 2,000 went to the dog park. The next line item would be, we took 3,000 from Jameson, North School, and West North, and we just put that into your paving to bring that, like I said, up to your 65,000. And we took a small portion, the 1,300, from your, where am I at? Your park rec equipment upgrades, and move that to your ball fields. Your ball fields are in need of some work for this upcoming fiscal year. And then we got rid of your splash park, $356, because we don't need it anymore. That line item's been
Okay.
dissolved. It's been constructed.
Satisfied.
The money
Okay.
for the splash park is in Department 60 for repairs and maintenance and operating supplies. And the same thing with solar field. Your solar field has already been constructed, so we took the remaining where's that at?
$131.
$131 that was left over in your solar fields, and moved that as well.